Good evening, everybody. Hope your Wednesday's gone very, very well. We're hoping to be joined we will be joined by a Leeds United fan in around half an hour's time. We're hoping also to be joined by a Leicester City fan as well. That situation's slightly fluid for their perspective on the Championship promotion race, but they would say they're probably looking the surest bet of the four immediate candidates. So what we're going to be discussing this evening for sure is Leeds, of course, and we're also joined by a Southampton fan, which is Martin Sanders. We're joined by Ipswich Town fan Seb Brown, who wasn't expecting to be in the midst of the promotion race, and we've got our lovely co-host Ollie Mann from the Sheffield United Way. Seb obviously joins us from the Blue Monday podcast. Good evening, gents. Thanks so much for your time. We do really appreciate you joining us. I'm going to come to you first, Seb. Sorry, it's Brown's the surname rather than Brown, isn't it?
No, it's Brown. It is Brown. Okay, it's a weird Twitter handle, yeah.
I see, right, okay. Ipswich are the team that really weren't expecting to be in the automatic promotion race. Just talk us through the journey that the Ipswich have been on, really.
Where do I start? It's been absolutely crazy. You know, you came on our podcast kindly in the summer. We did a 1-24 prediction. I think I said 9th. I thought that would be the basis of a good season. You know, flirt with the playoffs till about maybe March time, and I kind of figured the natural order would kick in. You know, by rights, we have no right to be where we are with the parachute sides all around us, and you know, it's just been beyond words. You know, the guys on the Blue Monday podcast did a show on Sunday, and they were saying even if we lose our next 3 or 4 on the bounce, you know, we'll still be way ahead of where we expected to be. Nobody saw this coming. We all know the crazy story of last year, and it gets to February time and we're done. Sheffield Wednesday are 8 points clear of us with a game in hand. We go on an insane run. We recruit sensibly in the summer. I thought we made George Hurst permanent, brought in a couple of sprinkles of Premier League quality and Brandon Williams and Amari Hutchinson, and it looked like we were set for a really solid kind of, you know, season. And glancing eyes towards McKenna, I think there were brief links with Leicester and Celtic, and we kind of think, okay, we need to enjoy this whilst we've got him, because let's be honest, he's destined for bigger and better things. But nobody saw this coming. You know, if you'd have said to us on the eve of the season, Christian Walton, one of our most important players from last season, the goalkeeper, is injured, out for 2 months, we're thinking, right, maybe you have to readjust things here. And to be sat here going into, you know, December, 8 points clear of Leeds in second, we've scored 7 more than the next closest team in the league. It's insane. It's crazy. It doesn't feel right. We will enjoy it for as long as we can. These are the good times that football fans need to enjoy, and occasionally we do have to pinch ourselves and say it's a dream, because we have no right to be up there. We've done the hard work. We've got the buffer now going into December, because our fixtures in December are very tricky. Don't get me wrong. If we come out, we've got Stoke on New Year's Day. If we come out at 5 o'clock on New Year's Day with an 8-point buffer still over Leeds, I will be beyond wildest dreams and expectations. So we've done the hard work. Now we've just got to keep on going and see where it takes us.
I'm going to hold you and Rich slightly responsible, Seb, because when I did that podcast that you mentioned in the summer, there was a sort of school of thought that Ipswich might be sort of surprise playoff candidates. And I think you and Rich were quite quick to weirdly play down expectation, as strange as that sounds, because 9th would still be a fantastic first season at this level. But there was also sort of that temptation, I think, to say, you know, how far could Kieran McKenna take Ipswich? But you've been absolutely extraordinary this season. Who would you say have been the key players so far? I mean, the obvious ones, I suspect, would be Connor Chaplin, Nathan Broadhead, and Leif Davis.
Yeah, absolutely. And also throw into there Sammy Morsey. He missed one game away at Huddersfield, and it was noticeable how different we were. He sets the standards from the middle of the park. You know, he'll get stuck in. He'll take games by the scruff of the neck. He's the one screaming at teammates for misplaced passes. Chaplin, like you say, and Broadhead are the two kind of eye-catching ones. They'll get the sexy stuff, the goals and the assists. And I have to, you know, Vlad Hadley, our goalkeeper, like I said, on the eve of the season, Christian Walton is ruled out for 2 months. He was absolutely brilliant last year, vital to us getting promoted. promoted. We were all a bit nervous because Hladky was signed by Paul Cook a couple of years ago, never really settled. It wasn't really his fault. He was playing, behind a different back four each week, and he was dropped pretty quickly and replaced by Walton. He's come in, and with the way he can play with the ball at his feet, he is now absolutely crucial to how we play games. He's so comfortable on the halfway line when we're pushing up. He can receive the ball in tight areas, lay it off to the centre backs, lay it off to the full backs. So the way he's come in and really kind of helped us evolve our style to a next level is crucial. And Walton's been fit now for about a month, but he's going to have to remain patient. He'll get the FA Cup game in January, but for now, Hladky's got the shirt, fully deserves it for the way he's playing, and really deserves it. The other one I would say just briefly as well is George Hurst. Obviously took him last season on loan for 6 months, did really well. He is a direct step up on Freddie Ladapo, who's kind of the reserve striker, and a bit like when Morsey's not in the team, him and Morsey are the two you do notice. If they're not playing, there is a bit of a drop off. But Davis has carried on as he was. Chaplin's carried on how he was. Broadhead's carried on how he was. These players who I guess we were all confident that they could make the step up have kind of gone beyond our wildest expectations, just like the whole team have with this start.
Ollie, where do you sort of put Ipswich in terms of the automatic promotion race? Because there would still be a perspective that this is a squad that's largely used to playing at a lower level, you could argue, or certainly not at a higher level than this before. And it's got quite a modest history, a lot of them. And therefore if you do say, yes, Ipswich could seriously stay in this automatic promotion race, you'd be putting a lot of onus on the coaching credentials of Kieran McKenna. I suppose, would there be any concerns from you as to what would happen if Ipswich did have a little bit of a drop off and how they might react to that?
Yeah, I think so. I think for me, obviously, Ipswich have been one of the outstanding teams. There's no denying it. It's been utterly fantastic to watch, and they've been really, really impressive. I think the work that McKenna's done is a real standout, but it does remind me a little bit of sort of when we first got promoted out of League One. We came up having got 100 points. We came into the Championship, and we started really, really well. I think it was probably just before this international break that we dropped from the top of the league because we'd had a fantastic start, but a key injury to Paul Coots had then sort of derailed our season, and we ended up finishing in that sort of 8th, 9th kind of position, having started really, really brightly. So I think I'd want to keep an eye out for injuries and whether or not they're going to have an impact. For example, if Morsey, as you've just mentioned there, picks up a big injury, that's obviously going to have an impact. And the other thing for me is watching Ipswich is unbelievably exciting. Obviously, it's fantastic. And obviously, as a fan, you must absolutely love being able to go and watch Ipswich play the way they are, score the goals that they're scoring. But there is an element for me of just the conceding, the defence. They're conceding more than a goal per game. They're giving up big chances as well. It's not like these are flukes that are going in against them. And I do feel as though whilst they're creating the best chance in the league, the XG will back that up. It's obviously sustainable. Everybody goes through bad patches. Everybody has that time where it's just not falling for you or it's just not bouncing right. So I'd have some concerns about that defensive solidity. Do you think that is your biggest concern looking at the squad at the minute, Seb?
You've nailed it. It's not consistent to keep conceding 2 goals per game, which is what we've been doing recently. It's strange because on that run in League One last year for the final 3 months, we conceded like 3 goals in 16 or 17 games. Teams were barely getting shots off against us. But for whatever reason, we started this season, the joke was it was always 3-2 at Portman Road and it was always 1-0 away from home. We kind of sorted it out on the road, and at Portman Road, we were conceding goals left, right and centre, which is fine when the striking part, the strike players turn up and knock in 3 a game, but that's not sustainable. You have to get back to that kind of ruthless streak at the back. McKenna was quite angry after, not angry, but he was quite animated, I'd say, after the Swansea game just before the pre-season break. It finished 3-2, 1-0 down, 3-1 up. They clawed it back to 3-2, and he was noticeable at the end of the game. He kind of applauded everyone. They went straight down the tunnel, and he came out afterwards, and he was basically saying, that should never have been 3-2. We've got work to do on in the break, and he's had 10 days now or so on the training pitch. They've had a bit of time off. It looks like they've all been to Dubai based on their various Instagram stories, living the dream. But hopefully now he's got a bit of time to get back into them. We can get that kind of ruthlessness back, because the old saying is, defenses win your titles and stuff. We can't keep conceding 2 goals per game and expect moments of magic from key players to bail us out. They're going to have to get back to that stinginess and that miserliness to really kind of, see out the season.
Yeah, it's what Chris Wilder always referred to as ones and zeros. If you can keep your defence to ones and zeros, that sets you up with such a fantastic position to be able to go forward. So hopefully, maybe we'll see that impact. Obviously, McKenna has had some time working with the players, so it'd be great to see that, because I think that for me is the only thing that I think is unsustainable. But 8 points clear, 39 points. Obviously, us and Burnley last year, I don't think either of us had got 39 points, had we, at this stage? I don't think we were on that kind of trajectory. We'd got a similar kind of gap. So it, to me, looks very, very positive. But yeah, just that little concern that niggles at the back of my mind.
Yeah, and we've got just to do a good last one. The fixtures in December are tough. In the same week, we've got Norwich on a Saturday, then Leeds away, then Leicester at home. You know, these games are coming thick and fast. Middlesbrough's in there as well, Middlesbrough away. So this is going to be a time now when, you know, the squad's going to be really tested. So it's a crucial time of the year going into January.
Oh, that's
the game at the weekend's tough.
Martin, how do you see Ipswich from the outside?
I've enjoyed watching them. I think Kieran McKenna is a breath of fresh air. I already do, and not the one thing that you do know is when you look at the statistics for teams in the division, they work as hard as anybody. They've had more successful tackles than any other team in the division at this moment in time. So they're a hard working side as well as a fluid side. You know, they transition the ball so quickly as well. I think they have a really tough test at the weekend against West Bromwich Albion. I think Corcoran's done a good job there. They were the best side that I've seen at St Mary's other than Leicester a couple of weeks ago. I thought they were outstanding. They're a really good side, big and physical. I think it'd be interesting to see how that one unravels. But been impressed with Chaplin, really, to see that he stepped up from League One and done what he's done. And he looks like he's a championship player. It looks like he can hack the level, and he keep getting goals. And it's all about momentum, isn't it? They have momentum. I think Southampton have probably proven that you can go from League One into the Championship. And if you're there at Christmas, like Seb said, I think you're in a really, really good position, because it might kick them on that final push. But they're an outstanding side.
Seb, do you expect, based on these defensive issues, especially seem to be having it, especially at home, do you think there's going to be another centre-back coming in January, or do you think there's another area that could be strengthened?
Well, we signed Axel Tuanzebe right at the end of the summer window, and he's made a couple of appearances. He featured in the Cup against Fulham in the defeat, and he got 90 minutes away at Rotherham in one of the 3-game weeks just before the break. So I think the plan will be, obviously, he's ex-Man United, Champions League pedigree. You know, in theory, he's got all the attributes. He looked really good at Rotherham. I went to Rotherham and he looked decent. In theory, he's the guy to come in and fix it. With the Asia Cup coming up, we're expected to lose Cameron Burgess, one of our centre-backs. He'll probably go away with Australia for a month or so. So I think the logical plan will be for Tuanzebe to kind of slot in alongside Wolfenden and fill that gap. I wouldn't expect a centre half to come in. I'd expect us to do business in January like we did last year, where we recruited championship players to kind of, you know, step down for 6 months and then look to push on this year. I think we'll look to do similar and kind of bring in players maybe on loan from the Premier League with views to signing them permanently. But I would say probably centre mid and centre forward are more of a priority than centre back if Tuanzebe can stay fit. But that is a big if given his recent career history.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because you did sign. You seem to be on paper quite well stocked in midfield. You've got a lot of options there. Massimo Luongo's there. You've got Jack Taylor there. Sam Morsey's, if he's fit, he's likely to play, isn't he? I'm sure you've got a couple of others in there as well. So what makes you think that the midfield is going to be the biggest priority?
Well, Lee Evans did his knee at Huddersfield away in September, so he's out for the season. So that's one down. Luongo will go away with Australia, like Burgess will. So that's another month where he's going to be out of the game. Jack Taylor, has come in recently. He got his first start when we played Southampton away. He got his first start there, and I thought he looked a little bit off it. Luongo sort of replaced him halfway through the second half, and straight away that brilliant understanding that he's got with Morsey was evident straight away. But the last couple of games he's come back in, he's got a habit of scoring spectacular goals. I don't know if you've seen the one against Wolves in the Cup, and the one against Swansea was an absolute rock.
Brilliant.
He's got that in his locker. So we spent, big money on him. It was 1.5 million quid in the summer. So everyone thought he'd be the starting centre midfielder alongside Morsey going into the season. McKenna stuck with Luongo, given how him and Morsey performed in the back end of last year. So he's the one that will come in. But Don Ball's kind of a squad player. We've got Cameron Humphreys, who is very highly rated, but it's a big ask to ask a 19-year-old to come into the throes of what's hopefully.
Do you need a loan move, do you reckon, Humphreys?
Yeah, I think so. Him and Elkin Baggett. Baggett will probably go with Indonesia for the under-20s Asia Cup, but I wouldn't be surprised if Humphrey goes out and plays some football for kind of 6 months or so to try and toughen, not toughen up. I mean,
I'll tell you what, Seb, he'd get some good League One offers. I think he's shown enough in League One to merit some good opportunities.
We've got a good link with Oxford. We sold Greg Lee to them. We've loaned Kyle Edison. So I was kind of hoping that Liam Manning would kind of stay there because he's playing football the way we want him to play, and he'd end up going there and get 6 months under him. But I'm sure there'll be a load of people coming to take him. But Morsey is the crucial one. If anything were to happen to Morsey, we've got a real problem. The drop off when he doesn't play, the way he drives standards is crazy. So I just think we need an extra that little bit of quality alongside him. If you can get somebody coming down for 6 months, sell them the dream of a 6 month drop down to go straight back up last year, that could be crucial because the way we play, those centre midfielders are absolutely crucial.
I think when Morsey goes home, that Ipswich are going to employ guards for him to make sure that he doesn't step on a nail at home or anything like that.
He has a habit of getting these bookings, so he's on 7 so far for the season. He took the 5 1-match ban. No surprising, we drew 1-1 in Huddersfield. The game he didn't play, he came straight back in, and we got another brilliant run. So he's on 7 now, so 3 more, and he misses 2 games. And given that horrible week of Norwich, Leeds away, Leicester, everyone's praying that he kind of can behave himself a little bit, get through the horrible December fixtures, and then maybe look to serve that suspension in January if possible.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to know a lot more about where we can really see Ipswich for this season. Like you say, I think after full time on New Year's Day, I think really spot on to make that point. But such an exciting season ahead, I think. Martin, I suppose Southampton came into this season with a little bit more in terms of expectation coming down from the Premier League. But you've gone into the international break in pretty good form after some concerns around September time.
Yeah, they're the form side in the division at the moment. They've been good. I think since the last international break, they're starting to show some real team spirit. There's some real resilience in games as well. You can see that from the late goals that they're scoring. They continue to keep playing. Even when things are not going right, they continue to do the same thing. Russell Martin's really embedded that in the players. But I don't think many people talk about the depth of the squad. And if Ryan Fraser's, he's not even been starting games. He's been coming off the bench and scoring goals. I think he scored 2 in 5. And I think he's had several assists within that time as well. And the squad depth's really good. They're strong at centre back, that's for sure. He's got a headache now because Mason Holgate come in at centre back for the game against West Bromwich Albion because of a suspension to Benderek, and he done really, really well. Jack Stevens is just about to come back from his injury, so all of a sudden he's got a lot of headaches at centre back at the moment because they're all playing really, really well. Kyle Walker-Peters is playing out of his skin at right back. James Breer coming at left back, and there's competition with Ryan Manning trying to get back in the side. So all over the pitch, there's loads of competition, and there seems to be a team spirit for the first time that I've seen at Southampton for a really long time. And that's really refreshing to see. And if they can go to Huddersfield and kickstart this next block of 5, I look at it in blocks of 5, that they really need to kickstart with a really good result Saturday. Then they're going to Bristol City at home on Tuesday night. But I feel a lot more positive than I did about it. But that's a lot from seeing what I'm seeing, and that's team spirit, that never die attitude. It's really refreshing.
Not something, I suppose you use the word never say die attitude there. That's 4 words technically, but we'll go with it. Not something you'd have necessarily associated with Southampton maybe a few weeks ago, Martin. Can you sort of put your finger on what's kind of clicked into gear? Has it been, Holgate coming in? Has it been sort of Flynn Downs playing well at the base of midfield? Just can what's been the biggest thing for
I think Flynn Downs, you touch upon him, I think he's been a massive plus. He's just started to settle now. I think when he came in, he had a sickness bug. He was unwell. He had food poisoning, and he lost a bit of weight, and it took him 3 or 4 games plus those international breaks just to get himself up to speed. But he does look so much more. He's bulked out a bit, and he looks a lot stronger than he did. He's a massive plus point for us. And Silamana's coming to the team. He's given them loads of pace. I think the real big plus is going to be Ross Stewart coming in. I think everybody's excited about Ross Stewart, but I just think the fitness levels look a lot better. Colin Calderwood's come in as an assistant coach next to Russell Martin. He's going to kind of come in and look after the defence. He's been in for a couple of weeks. They've got a new set piece coach in as well. So there's a lot of change happening behind the scenes, but I just think it's all just started to click maybe now for them. I think Ross Stewart will be key if he comes in and he can start scoring goals. They create a lot of chances. Southampton, they create a huge amount of chances. It just haven't, we scored 3 goals in the game against Leeds. And I thought, God, we so need a striker. But we're scoring the goals, but you still think we need a striker. With a striker, I think we could really start to sort of challenge for sort of like that second spot if we could put a really good run together between now and Christmas. I think between now and Christmas is really, really important.
Certainly is. Ollie, coming to you on this, the return of Ross Stewart for Southampton. They had a game against Rotherham a few weeks ago, just at the start of their winning run, where they created an awful lot of chances, and certainly first half of that game should have been out of sight. And the big thing that was missing for them was a goal scorer. Ross Stewart, this is someone who I think was the best striker in League One when he was in there. He started in the Championship in really good form. He's got a good frame about him as well and a good size. Could this be the focal point that Southampton need to really fire them into that mix?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Ross Stewart is up there. He's one of the best strikers in the Championship. I have no doubt about that in my mind. I think he's outstanding. I think you saw what an impact he can have with what he was doing at Sunderland. I think for me, it's the injuries, isn't it? That's the concern. It's, he might come in, he might be fit from now till Christmas, he might be fit till February. I'm not sure that I'd back him to be fit till the summer. It just feels as though he's had injury after injury over a fairly extended period of time now. And so I do think that he will make a huge difference. I do think he can be the player that Southampton would want to take those chances, to be clinical, to make the difference. But I just don't think you can necessarily rely on him for 30 games to really put that together, to make you chase down that top 2. And so I'd be looking at what else is there out there? What is there in January? What is going to make that difference? Because I look at it at the moment, and I know you've talked there about an abundance of centre-halves and some really strong defensive players who are having pretty good seasons, but I, similar to Ipswich, do look at Southampton's defensive record and think that's the thing for me. Because you said they've been scoring goals. Obviously, Ross Stewart is one of the standout players, but even in the game against West Brom, the XG against, it's high numbers that are coming out, and I do think that, for me, is where I'd be looking to try and tighten up a little bit. But it does sound as though positive steps are being taken on that, and that the introduction of players like Holgate is making the difference.
Martin, what do you think Southampton are going to need in January?
I think what Ollie says, I just think whether Ross Stewart is going to give us enough games. Can he stay fit for long enough? Because there's no doubt that Shea Adams will look to leave in this January window. He looks like a player that probably is ready to move on. He's not signed the contract that was offered to him. So it's pretty clear that he wants out. So I still think they're short in the striker department, because Sekou Mara is a young striker coming through. He's just not shown enough. I think a lot of people thought he would come in and play a little bit in the Championship and look to maybe make a difference off the bench. But he's shown absolutely nothing so far. He's a French under-21 striker. Mm-hmm. He's just not quite good enough for the Championship. So I think we'll probably need another striker, my gut feeling. Carlos Alcaraz has played in that position, but it doesn't suit him. Adam Armstrong sometimes plays in it, but he doesn't play as an out-and-out striker. I still think they're going to need another 9, possibly another midfielder. If you've got, Shea Charles has not played loads of football, but if Smallbone got injured and Downs got injured, it leaves them a little bit lightweight central midfield. So they probably do need another central midfielder. That would probably be my major areas that they need to look at.
I think just want to sort of go back to the Ross Stewart issue as well, Martin. It's one thing sort of being a real striker and someone who can hold the ball up as well. But I feel like with the way Russ Martin likes his strikers to operate, a lot of it's about sort of dropping in between the lines and linking play. I don't know if we've seen necessarily enough of Ross Stewart to judge whether he can do that. But is that possibly an area of sort of the unknown, I suppose, when it comes to how he's going to fit in stylistically?
That's certainly what Russell Martin likes from what I've seen from who he's played in that position. He likes him to drop in and pick the ball up and sort of like get involved in the play, sort of like that little bit deeper and sort of build from there. Whether Ross Stewart sometimes I look at it, think, is he a Russell Martin striker? Shay Adams is not really like, when he's played in that position, he's really straight. He sort of like lights the ball into him, but he doesn't drop deep and work hard enough. And that's why he probably used Charlie Alcaraz in that position, because he will work quite hard in and around the 8 position if you need him to. And he's a hard worker. He's good on the ball, doesn't give the ball away a lot. But it'd be interesting to see how it worked. When he come on against West Brom the other week, he ended up out on the right side. Shay Adams was playing through the middle, and we went out on the right side, but not sure that's where he's going to play. There's no doubt that's not where he want to play neither, but it is just how he fits him into the side. And they're all quite fluid, the front three for Southampton. One of the players I didn't really talk about was Stuart Armstrong. He's found some really good form. He looks a little bit better playing in the 8 as well, to be fair. He's got loads of players that can play in the 8. But he looks quite good in behind the front man and kind of links play quite well. So it'd be interesting to see how he fits him in. I'm quite intrigued by it. There's no doubt I don't think he'll start the next 2 games, but we will see how it unravels.
Do you know what? I often feel with Stuart Armstrong, he's quite a useful player to bring off the bench, because what strikes me about him is he seems to be someone who will kind of accelerate the tempo a little bit and sort of maybe play a slightly longer pass sometimes, or slightly just introduce a bit more zip or a bit more urgency into a game where maybe you might be needing it. But sometimes that can be better having a kind of fresh impact from the bench sometimes rather than starting a game. What's his impact been like this season when he started?
Yeah, he's been good. He's been really good. His biggest issue was fitness. He didn't play a lot last season. He's had probably 2 years since he signed for the football club. He's never played in the position that he wants to play in, and that is an essential role. But he's always played wide, and though the Southampton have always played quite as a narrow side, he's played wide either side, left or right. But he wants to play central midfield. Russell Martin's played him there. And as he's got fitter, he's influencing games more and more. I think he'd probably be a bit more of a squad player with Ross Stewart coming in. But he's a great player to bring off the bench, because you see the goal he scored for Scotland the other night. It was fantastic. He's wide on the left. He plays a 1-2, works hard to get the ball. And he's got a lovely striker for football as well. You saw it with the free kick that he scored at Stoke City early on in the season. He's a really good leader as well. He's a good player to have around. I don't think he'd be here much beyond this season. But it will be interesting to see if Fulham do come back in from this January, because I know they were very keen to take him in the summer. Will they come back in this window? Be interesting to see if Southampton do have interest in this window. I think him and Carl Walker-Peters would be the 2 that I'd be majorly concerned about. But I'd like to hopefully see it, if as long as we're in that chasing pack, whether they just give it to the end of the season. This is the best possible chance for this club to get back in the Premier League, because of the group of players. It will break up that bit more if they don't go up this season.
Absolutely. Seb, from an Ipswich point of view, are you a little bit wary of Southampton if they can find momentum, stabilise at the back, add the firepower, and that sort of potential for them to maybe capitalise if, as we discussed earlier, Ipswich might drop a few points in December?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a parachute side, they can go out and spend big in January, and they had that horrible kind of run that we took advantage of when, was it 3 defeats on the bounce, or a bit of pressure maybe on Russell Martin, who was getting booed at the game we played out with the playing out from the back and stuff. So we played them at a good time, but I just always think these parachute sides, when it gets to January and they can spend, and it gets to February, they start to really kind of hit momentum and, can easily go on decent runs. So they are there in the rearview mirror, just like Leeds are hunting us down. The good thing that we've done is give us this buffer, which we might have to eat into now. Like I keep referring to these upcoming fixtures, we've done the kind of, we've put in the hard yards, got ourselves in a really strong position. I think all Ipswich fans, we're not going to, it would take a catastrophic drop off in form for us to finish outside the playoffs now. I think the fan base is probably quite split on will we get automatic or will we finish in the playoffs. I think we have to be respectful and wary of the sides that are hunting us down. By rights, we shouldn't really be there where we are in the league at the moment. And with 2 big clubs like Leeds and Southampton sort of coming for us, we can't really afford to take her off the ball at all.
Yeah, certainly. I think that makes it. It could make it a really exciting sort of 4-way clash for automatic promotion, or 3-way clash in terms of one spot if Leicester run away with it. Martin, how do you sort of assess your chances at the moment? Because as much as we're talking with a lot of positivity about Southampton's form at the moment, is there that risk, or is that they're a bit of apprehension about the the losing streak that we mentioned in September and whether some of those defensive vulnerabilities could come back?
Oh yeah, definitely. I just think that we saw what happened in 4 games and how that unravelled, and it was quite alarming to watch, really. But teams create chances against us all the time. We don't keep a lot of clean sheets. I think we kept 2 clean sheets all season. That would concern me. I would be surprised if we make the top 2. I think we'll come close, but I always thought we'd be a playoff side at the best. And if we get the playoffs, I think majority of Southampton fans would be happy with that. I think we all want to go straight back up, but it's a really tough division. And Leicester have been superb. Yeah, they've hit a little bit of a bump in the road. Ipswich have not had that bump in the road. They may do at some stage, but they've given themselves such a buffer now. Like Seb said, they're in a good place, really. I think it would take something really special from Southampton and Leeds now to really get in those autos. But I think we've got to be fairly happy with where we're at. We're giving ourselves a chance, but home form is important, isn't it? You have to be good at home. We haven't been great over the years at home. That would be alarming, but you have to stop conceding goals, and that's something that we seem to do.
Absolutely. Well, talking of another automatic promotion contender, we're delighted to be joined by Ewan Metcalf from the Peacock's Roar Podcast on Leeds United. Good evening, Ewan. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you, Gav. How are you? How are you, boys?
Yeah, we're really well, thanks, Ewan. Really appreciate your time. Leeds have looked sort of quite really sensational at times going forward this season. So how do you rate your automatic promotion prospects?
Terrible. Got no chance. What more do you want to know? I'm only joking. Listen, our default position as Leeds fans is to be completely cynical about getting optimistic or hoping for anything better than the worst possible case scenario. So I think we probably try to stay grounded and realistic. We've got excited when we had Bielsa in charge before and thought we were going to be in Europe in 4 years, and look what happened. So nobody's getting carried away with themselves. But I think we've proven that against Ipswich and against Leicester that we can compete with a good size. We had a slow start. I mean, I think previously in other seasons we would have probably been somewhere near the top or at the top, wouldn't we, with the points tally we've got now after the games we've played. So it's quite exceptional that Leicester and Ipswich have not just started quickly but maintained that form over sort of 15 games. So I'm always relatively optimistic individually, but I know a lot of Leeds fans are. Our default position is not to get too carried away because we know there's always a bump in the road coming down the corner. If that explains it eloquently enough or not.
You sound like a man who's been bruised, Ewan. So, I mean, I think what kind of really interests me, Ewan, about Leeds is when you appointed Daniel Farke, I was expecting quite patient football, sort of picking teams open over long passing moves. And actually, what I've seen is actually a little bit different. I think the speed and sort of incision of the attacks has been probably a little bit different to maybe what I've expected from Daniel Farke's Norwich sides at this level previously. Has that surprised the Leeds fan base, or is it just a case of him adapting to personnel?
I think he's had to adapt quickly, hasn't he? And he's had to adapt 3 or 4 times because we started with a team that, half the team, people leaving who didn't want to be there. So he's had to sort of live with that and bring people in quickly. And then, a few people, good players on loan, that you never know how they're going to work out. You never know what you're going to get. I mean, Jed Spence is an example of a kid that's not played. He played half a game or whatever. Rodon's been an absolute colossus at the back. I think he's dealing with what he's got in front of him in regards to the playing squad. I think we've all been surprised that, again, with the slow start we had and the poor kind of up and down inconsistency in form, how once we've got on a roll, past the Southampton game where we just, they blew us out of the water in 20 minutes, really. We looked out of it quickly. We're kind of in every game, and I think we can adapt. I think we've played some games where it has been a little bit longer, and we've played games where it has been, much shorter, much quicker, much more football being played through the lines. And we seem to be able to win in different ways, which is always great in this division because you need to be able to do that, don't you? You can't just go out and play great football every game. You've got to be able to battle, and you've got to be able to play along at times. Yeah, I'm still not convinced we've got our best 11 on the pitch. I'm still not convinced we've hit peak form. There's times where I've seen, as I think the Bristol City game, there was another game where I kind of felt like we haven't got out of third gear yet, and we're kind of cruising a little bit, and that must be worrying to the guys on the outside. It must be worrying to other teams, me saying that, but at the same time, if that's our top gear, then we sort of, it looks like we're playing within ourselves. I mean, again, we've been used to Bielsa ball where it's frenetic and there's high risk, high peril, and I think it just feels very normal and a bit controlled and a little bit more like manageable. So, I think we've proven we can play lots of different ways and get results in different styles, which is great.
Certainly have. Talk us through the attacking quartet, Ewan, of Crescentio Somerville, Dan James, Jorginho Ruta, and Joel Pirro, because that's really set the championship alight from what I can see.
Sorry, just repeat that, Gabby. Just broke up then, mate.
So, sorry, the attacking quartet of Somerville, Ruta, Pirro, and James.
Not bad, is it? I'm all right with it. I'm fine with it. And we've been in the Championship. In fact, we've probably been in the Premier League and had a worse front four. So yeah, really happy. They all bring something different to the team. I think Somerville's been that sort of player where people have felt like he's never really reached his potential, and potentially had a little bit of an attitude issue around again that consistency and he's had fallouts with his own players at times back in the past, but he seems to have grown up, matured, and turned into a brilliant footballer at this level. Certainly can play above this level. Still very young. James is a player being loaned out to Fulham, come back. Not popular, no end product. People would say he's got wheels. He's a quick player and he's fast, but offers little else. Which again wasn't the player you saw at Swansea, was it? He seemed to have that end product and goals in his locker. He's completely transformed the loan to Fulham and coming back to Leeds and being welcomed back, new management, new opportunity. He's responded to it, and his end product is certainly there, both in assists and goals. Ruter's an absolute enigma, isn't he? He's mercurial. He can sort of lounge about the pitch and look like he's not interested for 5 minutes, and he gets the ball and sort of nutmegs 4 people and runs through the midfield and plays a killer pass and really. I guess he's the player that people are talking about, although I think they're all contributing. So I think Ruter is probably the one. And again, if you've asked Leeds fans at the start of this season, who do you want to move on? I think probably quite a lot would have said Ruter because he hadn't performed, he hadn't even been given a chance. He'd not looked like anything like the player we brought in from Hoffenheim. So Pirro's probably the one. I like Pirro. I think the way he plays is great and brings people into the game and. He's clever. He has scored quite a few goals, and he does link up really well. But I think the jury's still out. Probably is the short answer. In regard of is he playing in the right position? Seems to be playing very deep, and Ruter's sort of playing 9, but he's sometimes in a forward position or a right back's position, receiving the ball. I mean, he's all over the pitch, sort of thing. So it's a real sort of cohesive system, I think, and people seem to swap positions and roles, and it works really effectively. And it's proven against the good sides, Ipswich, against Leicester, less so against Southampton, that they find it hard to sort of pick people up and mark the system and the structure, and it can be quite difficult to get your head around. So yeah, listen, I think as a 4, magical. I mean, while it's working, just keep it as it is. And people said, drop Pirro out, get a 10 in January, but then you start to mess with the dynamics of the team. And I think while we're doing so well and we're on this roll, then why would you change it? But yeah, I think probably Pirro's the one that people are less convinced about, but others have stepped up and done brilliantly, as I've said. So I like them all. I think they're great. All seem to have worked well together and have a unity. Not just on a football pitch, but off the pitch seem to be pally and have some sort of relationship, which is always good. But I think it's got to be up there with the gentle, no doubt say, because I don't watch your teams every week, but it's got to be one of the better front fours or the most dangerous front four, productive front four in the division at the moment, haven't it?
Yeah, I think so. You mentioned January there, Ewan. What do you think if Leeds don't go for number 10 in January? What do you think they do need?
Well, the argument's not much, isn't it? We can be greedy in this game, can't we?
Go on, be
In the game of
greedy.
football. Yeah, I'm really greedy, and I'm inherently greedy. But I think we don't need much. A 10's the argument, isn't it? Do you put a 10 in there and have somebody who can link up the play better and contribute to more goals? I think people have talked about Chair at QPR and is it Sarah at Norwich and. The players that might come in and do that role. I'm not convinced they'd be any better different to what we've potentially got. I think you've not talked about Nonto can come in, who's just scored twice
Sure.
for the 21s for Italy. Who's not being on form, being injured, but is obviously a quality footballer. Matteo Joseph, who scored for the England youth side the other day, who's again more of a 9. Bamford, there's plenty of quality there. We're not lacking in quality or options off the bench, which is. For many years, especially with Bielsa, we argued that the bench looked weak and there wasn't much beyond the first 11, 12, 13. But yeah, probably the 10's the one I'd want. And then, you're looking at Jed Spence, if he stays fit, great. But then Ayling's been picked out a bit as a weak link. Melier this last
Archie
season.
Gray's been playing right back as well, hasn't he, Ewan? He's been doing really well for a 17-year-old playing out of position against one of the best wingers in the league, Captain Quiet,
Yeah, and I think sometimes even when he plays in midfield, he seems to drop into that sort of almost like an inside inverted right back role when he's playing in midfield. So I think he's comfortable there. I also think, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure for the England setup he plays right back, or he has played right back for them. So I don't think it's a position that's unusual or strange to him. But I think he's one of them. He's that he's got a dynasty at Leeds, but a football dynasty. The family that's his uncle, his granddad, his dad. They've all played professional football, so I think he could probably play him anywhere and he'd be decent.
Yeah, let's hope he has kids.
Exactly. Yeah. I think everybody's watching. When he has kids, they'll be the next one. And obviously, he's got a younger brother called Harry, who's 14, who's I think 14 turning 15, is supposed to be even better. So they just keep, this grey pipeline has been fantastic for Leeds.
No pressure, Harry. Listen, before we let you go, Ewan, just wanted to get a final sort of check on Leeds' chances, because just before you came on, we were talking to Seb about Ipswich's chances. And at the moment, they've got a really big buffer over Leeds, but they've got a very tough run of fixtures in December, including I think they play Leeds as well. So do you feel like you're in a position now to put together a really good run of form over December and possibly close that gap?
Last year, I mean, listen, it's an unpredictable league. I think we've been surprised by the consistency that all the top 3 sides, and now Southampton again are adding to that with this consistent run, which is pretty unique in the Championship, isn't it? Because there's always hurdles and challenges and obstacles and tricky games. Rotherham away, and these teams that you kind of expect to go and turn over, where they'll sometimes shock you. So without again getting too ahead of ourselves, I think we're always really confident with Farke that he's able to sort of change in game and adapt to games and styles and get a result, and that the squad is got enough depth and is playing well enough that we will do well. And I don't think I think Leeds fans are quite comfortable. I can't speak for them all, obviously, but I know enough of them. I've been around a while, that we're quite comfortable in the position we're in at the minute. I think we'd be less comfortable, believe it or not, if we were at the top, not particularly sailing away with it, but I'm not putting any pressure on you lads, you know what I mean? But the minute you get 8 points clear, you think, oh, we've got this, I just heard Ollie say about Ipswich, we've got enough of a buffer, to sort of, carry us on, and that's when you've got to worry, because you think, oh, we've got plenty of points, don't worry, it's fine, I'm getting them all twitching now, that's what I'm doing, so they start panicking. But no, I think there is a danger. It's like people say about 2-0 being a tricky scoreline, it's a dangerous scoreline, because you think, oh, we get the next goal, the game's over, but then if somebody concedes, then game on. That's kind of where Leeds are at the minute, and if we were top, everybody would be gunning for us. We would be the cup final. I think the way we started, people thought, we'll go and turn Leeds over, and of course it's not proven that way. So I think, listen, being in the rear view mirror, just behind the front runners is very comfortable for us, and I think people are confident. I'm pretty confident that we will be able to turn it over if we can keep people fit and we continue in the vein of form that we have. But again, they're all big ifs out there, as we know, particularly in the Championship.
Certainly is. Ewan, thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate you joining us, mate. And keep up the great work with the podcast.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, that's appreciated, and thanks for inviting me on. And good luck, boys. Speak again, no doubt. But yeah, good luck with the podcast, mate.
Yeah, cheers, Ewan. Delighted to introduce our next guest, which is Mark Manderfield from the It's 11, It's Heaven for Jamie Vardy podcast. Thanks for jumping on, Mark. We really appreciate it. You're a Leicester City fan sitting pretty reasonably pretty at the moment. Just talk to us about that moment when Harry Winks blasted the ball in from range at QPR.
Yeah, it was a great moment. I think potentially not been seen for any non-Leicester fans, but we've sort of struggled our way through October and the beginning of November. Not great performances, but away at QPR when it mattered, Harry's stepped up 25 yards out and put an absolute peach into the top corner. So that was great. We just don't want to play any more teams from Yorkshire because we keep losing to them. So I'm glad that your esteemed friend from Leeds United's gone, because we didn't want to discuss that night, which sort of ruined my weekend on a Friday night before. So, yeah, we're sitting okay. We're sitting top of the league still. So we'll take that. And, if you'd offered us where we're at this stage, we'd have took that all day long.
Yeah, absolutely. It's felt a little bit, Mark, like you've established a really clear style of play and a pretty consistent ability to continually get results, even when not necessarily tearing teams apart every week. But it feels like you've put yourselves in a great position to possibly go into January. And is the focus going to be in January, Mark, to try and build a squad that you feel will help you get closer to being ready for the Premier League if you do get there next season?
Yeah, I don't think any Leicester fans thinking about the Premier League as much as yet. I think we're enjoying this season. I think we're focusing on this season. We didn't want to start slowly, and we haven't started slowly. We started really well. Enzo Maresca has brought a style of play in, but he hasn't got all the players to facilitate that style of play at the moment. So, we look in the central midfield area, and you've got Wilfred and Didi playing as attacking number 8, and it's no disrespect to him because actually, I'm sure Martin, I remember him chopping back inside at St Mary's and sending the defender for a hot dog before putting it in the corner on that night. So we haven't got the players for the system just yet. But that's quite a scary thing for the rest of the league, I think, because I can see us going out and strengthening in January where we need to. We've still got a huge net underspend for the season so far. So I think there will be some money there to go out and get some players. What I would say is we probably need to strengthen up front. And, I can't believe I'm saying that with Patson Daka, and Jamie Vardy. But unfortunately, that's an area where we're lacking a little bit at the moment because Iheanacho's got a few months left on his contract, doesn't seem all that interested. And as much as it pains me to say, Jamie Vardy looks like he's potentially slowing down a little bit now. So probably our greatest ever player, but it's hard to see.
Yeah, I think what you've sort of found with Vardy is the sort of the requirements for playing centre forward in an Enzo Maresca team, a little bit like we've talked about earlier in the podcast with Southampton, is so much of it is about dropping in between the lines and maybe even being a bit of a false nine, if you like. And that's probably not quite in Vardy's in Vardy's makeup necessarily. So yes, I think a striker, I can see why you'd make that argument, even though it looks like you're really well sapped on paper. I'm also wondering if with Callum Doyle injured, a left-sided defender is going to be required.
Yeah, absolutely. Just back to the striker point, one more second. I didn't mention Tom Cannon, who we obviously signed. He was on loan at Preston last season. So he's yet to make his debut. So, he potentially could be the striker that we need. Left side of defence has been a challenge for us because, like you said, we've only had the one left-footed defender that's there. So James Justin's filled in pretty well on that side. But but he's quite injury prone. He's sort of made a paper himself. So we have to be careful with James Justin and Ricardo Pereira. And they both had to face a lot of game time recently. So I think the international breaks come at a good point, allowing us to get some players back to full fitness again. So I don't think Callum Doyle will be that far away now. They said 11 weeks, and that was a couple of months ago. So hopefully he'll be back soon.
Oh, well, that's going to be a very welcome boost, I suspect, Mark. I think what I've been really surprised by in terms of Leicester has been the form of Yannick Vestergaard, because before the season I was a little bit apprehensive. I wasn't aware that he's as good as on the ball as he is, so maybe you give Enzo Maresca some credit for that, but also the way he's been able to hold that high line, which Enzo Maresca requires, without sort of being sort of vulnerable to those one-on-one situations. I think that's just been really impressive, and it seems like him and Winks have been key to getting your attacks moving.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Yannick's had a great season. He's been definitely a surprise. He was a fall guy for a lot of Leicester fans without even playing last season. You know, he was symptomatic of Brendan Rodgers' transfer policy. Go out and spend a lot of money on a player that doesn't play. And he's had his opportunity this season. He's keeping out Connor Cody at the moment. I'd be interested to see if Harry Souttar gets a game after the break. He's been away on international duty, scored a couple more goals for Australia. He's looked really sharp against, albeit sort of slightly lower opposition. But I'd be interested to see if Harry Souttar gets a game soon. But Yannick Vestergaard has definitely earned his place back in the 11, and he is crucial to that style of play, playing out from the back. I think he's had the most touches out of anyone in the league this season so far.
That doesn't surprise me. Yeah, what a season he's having so far. Ollie, what have you made of the way Leicester have gone about things? Because we can talk about certain subtle tweaks that they might be needed to get even closer to the Enzo Maresca ideology, but even at, sort of halfway there or 75% of the way there, they still look like quite a dominant force, don't they?
Yeah, they're outstanding, aren't they? I mean, and it is credit, to Seb and to the others that they've managed to keep any kind of pace with them. Obviously, Ipswich joint on points with them at the moment, which is just incredible. But yeah, Leicester look comfortably. Like, I said this to Seb before we came online, but without being to disparage my own team, I feel as though Leicester are potentially better than us. And it does feel a little bit like the teams that got relegated last season were potentially better than those that went up. So it's no shock to me to see Leicester being as dominant as they are. Of all the 4 teams, I've gone away, I've done some looking into sort of stats and looking at the league and things like that. And Leicester just look like the clear dominant force, The scoring goals, they don't concede many, but they also don't give away any chances. They create chances as good as anybody else. It's really the story of just a pure dominant team at the moment at this level. And, those back-to-back defeats are a concern. You'll think you want to get going again. But ultimately, I just can't see anybody stopping Leicester, to be honest. I know it feels harsh to say that to an Ipswich fan. Who'll probably be thinking, wait a minute, we've been just as good. But I just think that there's always the sense that Leicester not only can keep this going consistently, but potentially could get better. Whereas I do feel as though maybe the others around them don't have that next level to take it to that maybe Leicester can.
Very interesting. Mark, I want to ask you about Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, because when I've spoken to you about this podcast, him on this podcast previously, there's been this feeling that I think because he's such a much-loved figure at Leicester and has kind of come through the academy and spent a long time as part of the club, he almost takes on more responsibility. Do you see that as a positive thing in terms of the role he's played in that creative process, or do you feel like it's he can try too hard at times?
Yeah, I think he does try too hard a lot of the time. So I think with Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, this is probably going to sound quite harsh, but outside of the Leicester fan base, rate him higher than the fan base themselves do. Because we know he's got that quality. We know he should be one of the best players in the league, and he's turned it on occasion this season. You look at our midfielders, he's been nowhere near the level of Harry Winks. I know it's a completely different style of midfielder. And there's been times where he's lost the ball quite easily, failed to sort of focus at different points, let his man run off him. And that's been a challenge, but he is a brilliant, brilliant footballer. And he should be our star man really for this season. That said, he's got the most amount of goals, or had the most amount of goals and assists before the last round. I'm not sure if he still has or not. There's plenty there for us to be pleased about with Dewsbury-Hall, but he can still take his game to another level, I think, as far as we're concerned.
What's required for him to take that game to another level? And do you think it's something, a psychological thing? Do you think he needs to sort of cool himself down a bit at times? Or
Yeah, I think
is it
so. I
something
think
to do
he
with
takes too
mental
much.
health?
I think he takes too much pressure on himself. I think he sees himself as the guy that needs to drag us through, and single handedly. And while that might have been the case last season when we really struggled for form and we struggled for togetherness, he doesn't need to do it this season. He needs to play his part in the team, do the simple things well, and relax and enjoy what's going on before him. So it's not a criticism. It probably sounds like a criticism of Dewsbury Hall. It's not. We just want to see. We want to see him at the very peak of his game. He's 26 now, I think. So he should be coming into his peak.
Yeah, for sure. I think a couple of the players that are coming into their peak are Abdul Fatawu and Steffi Mavrididi. It feels like one of Leicester's real strengths this season is you've got players who are really highly skilled and quick and strong in those 1v1 wide situations. How important has that been to the form that you've displayed this year?
Yeah, I mean, I spoke earlier about the goal threat from up front maybe not being quite as high as we'd like. So with that, we've really put an over-reliance on the wingers. Mavrididi's been a breath of fresh air. He can take a man on. He's got skill. He's got speed. He puts the work in defensively as well. And I think Abdul Fatawu is a real talent. I think he's not really been able to showcase it as much as we'd like so far. He had an injury at one point. He's played bits and bobs, sort of getting in ahead of Yunus Agkun and Casey McAteer, and then dropping back out of the team again. But he's got something special about him. He's the sort of player that when he gets the ball at his feet, the whole stadium goes to the edge of their seat. And that happens rarely. I remember, I'm not comparing him to Riyad Mahrez, but when we have Mahrez, that sort of player that gets you in, and you would pay the admission fee for him alone. I think at 19 years old, this boy has got serious potential. And we've got the option to buy as well if we get promoted.
Mm-hmm.
So 17 million euros, I think, will be hugely well spent.
Absolutely. Seb, are you looking at Leicester feeling like it's just going to be very difficult to catch them given the sort of profile of their squad?
Very much so. I mean, yeah, and until a couple of weeks, till these two defeats on the bounce, they were storming away with the league. They probably would have smashed Reading's all time. Was it 105, 106 points total? And I think, I think everybody in the league kind of doffed their cap and said, "Yep, fair play. They shouldn't really be here, and they're going to absolutely storm it." The fact we're level with them going into the last week of November is a credit to what we've done. But yeah, I think, as I said earlier on this show, I think the natural order starts to take effect at some point, and I'd imagine come January they'll probably spend big and they'll just go on a brilliant run in the second half of the season with Morenska having more time to coach those players. And if we can stay with them for as long as we possibly can, then it's great credit to what we're doing and what McKenna's doing for us.
You say, Seb, I think Ipswich have been better than Leicester this season. I think they've been absolutely a breath of fresh air to the league, and they fully deserve to be up there. And actually, they probably deserve to be ahead of us based on how we've played in some games. So I'm not sure you're going to go anywhere. I've got a feeling that they're going to be there or thereabouts at the end of the season. I think McKenna's doing a fantastic job, and that goal scorer we're looking for, we probably sold to you in George Hurst.
Yes, thanks for that. Thanks, Jeremy. He turned out really well for us. Yeah, I was the loan last year went well, and it kind of went a bit quiet in the start of the summer. I thought, are they going to go back in for him, or have they got extra targets? I guess they wanted to get him back in the building and reassess your squad. So he's done brilliantly for us. Yeah, he doesn't necessarily grab the headlines. I think he's got 4 goals so far this season, so he's not out and out prolific. But what he does offer, that work rate, that kind of back to goal play, pressing from the front by 70-75 minutes, he's always absolutely done because he puts in such a shift. But what he does is absolutely crucial to get the likes of Chaplin, Broadhead, and Burns involved. And obviously, like I said earlier, we've scored 7 more than the next closest rival, so that the front players are all delivering at the moment.
Mm. Well, let's between us kind of discuss the automatic promotion picture. I think as much as from I do want to see that extra gear in Leicester and go from maybe being a 7 out of 10 in terms of performances average to a bit more of an 8 or 9, because I can see that they've got the individual quality to do that. At the same time, I feel like in terms of the automatic promotion conversation, they just seem to be able to win games with that individual quality, and I think it's going to be very difficult for anyone to stop them. So let's kind of switch it into the 3 candidates for another automatic promotion position, which would be Southampton, Ipswich, and Leeds. I'm going to come to you on this, Ollie. Which who would you sort of pick if you had to pick one of the three?
Yeah, I knew you were going to come to me.
I know.
Still don't have an answer to the question. No, it's one of them where I think you're right. I think, Leicester, we say we want to see more from him. If they play at 7 out of 10 every week, they'll win the league anyway. I just think they're at that level at the moment. And so I think we can all be fairly confident in that. Behind them, I apologise immediately to Martin. But I don't think it's going to be Southampton. They're not the team that I'm looking at as being. I do think it's going to be between Ipswich and Leeds. I do think they're the two teams who look like the most sustainable in terms of the way they're going to build and the way they're going to keep that going forwards. It's a big gap. It is a big gap. And, Ewan referred to it before where, it does become a little bit of desperation. Please don't throw away this gap. We had it last season. We had a much bigger gap to Middlesbrough, but when they were coming, it turned from a period of being like, oh yeah, this is amazing to, please don't mess this up. And I do worry that if that comes to Ipswich, does that pressure get to them, given that they only came up from League One last season? It is a huge step up being chased down by a team like Leeds. But I also worry for Leeds in January. I think there's a chance that they have the same disruption they had in the summer. We saw how that disrupted their squad. I am going to give Leeds the edge and say that Leeds are going to nick that second automatic promotion spot. But I do think Ipswich will run them really, really close.
There you go. Mark, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, and keep up the great work with the podcast, mate. Thank
you very much, Gab. It's a pleasure to be on.
Cheers. So we're going to come back to it with that automatic promotion conversation. Martin, you felt like, I'll ask you, do you agree with Ollie's assertion that it's not going to be Southampton in the top two?
I just think it'd be really difficult for us because I just know that with those frailties at the back, and we could just those 4 games that we lost in the manner, it could easily happen. You could easily lose 2 or 3 games. I think we will lose more games as the season goes. I think Ipswich should get that second spot. That's my gut feeling. I think I'll be intrigued to see what happens with Leeds. Like Ollie was saying, it in the window, they definitely have interest. They got a few players that may be a little bit unsettled there. I just think Ipswich have got momentum. I think they've got the manager for it. I think their home ground's a fortress. They're the only side, I believe, that haven't lost on the road yet as well. So they're just everything going for them right now. And if they come back from this international break and go well to Christmas, I think they'll nick it. I just think momentum's there. If we can hold a playoff space, which I think we will, I'll take that.
Okay, so I think what we've kind of agreed from this is that obviously Leicester are going to get the top 2. I think we're unanimous on that, and that Southampton probably won't. So Seb, it does really come down in terms of this conversation between Ipswich and Leeds. Do you fancy putting forward your case for Ipswich to get into the top 2, or do you feel like Leeds might put you to the post?
2 words, Kieran McKenna. That's what gives me the confidence, given what he's done. When Ewan was speaking and saying about 8 points is a big buffer, and the pressure will start to build. McKenna is so good at keeping this squad grounded. He comes out in his press conferences, he talks about humility, he talks about respect to the opposition. I don't for a second think that anyone in the squad will be getting carried away, because he's built this squad of brilliant characters in his own kind of image, and he's so good the way he can convey his emotions. He's so emotionally intelligent the way he can get stuff across to the players. So with him in the dugout, we've always got a chance. January will be crucial. Last January, our business was absolutely superb. We bring in Massimo Luongo, Harry Clark, Nathan Broadhead, and George Hurst and get over the line. If we can do similar, with quality additions from the Premier League, then why not? If we can get through December, the fixtures do start to ease up a little bit. Yes, our 8-point buffer might be eaten into with that Middlesbrough, Norwich, Leeds, Leicester run of 4 games on the bounce. But we're there on merit. We do deserve it. We score goals. If McKenna can sort out this conceding 2 goals every single game problem that we've had recently, then there's no reason not to think why we can't keep going for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think January you mentioned is a really interesting point, because you could look at it and say it's a real opportunity for Leeds to get another sort of gain more ground on Ipswich because of the quality that they can attract. But I'm yet to be convinced. They've just been taken over by the 49ers in the summer. I'm yet to be convinced by them as an actual operation in terms of being able to pick players. Whereas I think with Ipswich, I think you're a really smart club. And I'm so confident that Kieran McKenna will get the best out of who they bring in, even if it's for a little bit less money. So I'm so torn between Leeds and Ipswich. I'm literally, even as I'm answering this, I don't know where I'll go. But I think the Kieran McKenna is just such a huge factor. He just seems to be able to maximise everyone in the squad. And while Ipswich do have massive challenges ahead, I just find it really hard to go against Ipswich at the moment, which is crazy considering they're newly promoted and have so many big challenges to overcome. But I'm just I'm so taken by Ipswich at the moment.
Yeah, I think we can all say we're rooting for Ipswich at the very least. Like I might have waned in terms of my confidence, but please to God, I want it to be Ipswich. So
it makes an incredible story as well, doesn't it? I saw a highlights program the other day, and they spoke about the atmosphere being that good at Portman Road. They're talking about it. Well, it's not been like it is right now since Sir Bobby Robson was the manager there. So it speaks volumes of what Kieran McKenna's done.
By the way, as well, Martin.
Yeah, George Burley in there as well, wasn't he? Yeah.
The whole club, the whole town is transformed. You know, you only have to go back nearly probably 2 years in a couple of weeks' time. We lost at Charlton in League One on a Tuesday night. One of our defenders was arguing with the fans. Paul Cook had just been sacked. You know, we were still, even though the takeover had happened 6 months previously, we were right back to where we'd been as town fans for the last 20 years. Kieran McKenna comes in, 6 months of building. Last month we hit League One. This year it's continued. The whole place has been transformed. You know, you can't get a ticket for love nor money at Portman Road at the moment. Away games sell out instantly, regardless if they're Tuesday nights up to Rotherham, etc. It's a real feel-good factor about the club at the moment, and long may it continue.
Absolutely. Well, I think just to finish on that point, I hope Ipswich fans will I know Ipswich fans will enjoy the journey because I think you've got it's wonderful to see you have a club and a team to be so proud of, and I'm so excited for you for the journey that you've had and for the journey that's ahead. Listen, keep up the great work on the Blue Monday podcast. Martin, I know you do some great stuff on Southampton as well, so everyone go check out at @footballmartin_. Ollie, thanks for your company as always as co-host. This has been the EFL Championship podcast. Thanks to you for watching at home, and we'll see you again next week.